a component of the success clients experience is not necessarily what they had anticipated or even asked for to begin with. For instance, we've been working with one client for over 18 months now, and we've helped him launch not just a Substack, but a paid Substack. We've helped him launch a coaching course. So what originally was born as a growth-oriented LinkedIn service has now grown into two different revenue streams that we helped him build and manage. It's grown into podcast bookings. It's grown into increased network. It's grown into new relationships. So, of course, the nature of posting on social media and personal branding, as we all understand, is to open the door for the opportunities that you want. But more often than not, you'll find that it opens the door to opportunities you weren't even expecting. And those are always nice cherries on top that we see for clients.
Welcome to the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. I'm Mike Deaton.
And I'm Lygia Deaton. Together as co-hosts in life, business, and this podcast, we're matching up the heavyweights of cash flow creation to see who reigns supreme.
We do this so you can discover the best way for you to generate transformational cash flow and pursue the life of your dreams. So whether you're a side hustle seeker, full-time entrepreneur, or just looking to create job-quitting cash flow like we did, hit subscribe and grab your ringside seat for the most entertaining and informative investing show on the airwaves. Let's get in the arena.
Let's do it. We have a fun and relevant matchup on this episode of the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. Ghostwriting for business content creation versus coaching business owners in setting up their own tools and processes to run their own marketing machine.
It's a classic give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish matchup.
That's right.
Our first contender is the head of content for CRE Digital, a digital media ghostwriting agency that has helped over 35 commercial real estate founders and firms raise millions of dollars in capital and drive qualified leads, sales, and brand authority on LinkedIn. He obviously represents the ghostwriting as a service side of today's matchup. Fighting out of Detroit, Michigan, please welcome Adam, the LinkedIn literary luminary, Noor. And our second contender is a veteran of the digital content industry for over 14 years now. He's grown multiple businesses, been involved in multi-million-dollar acquisitions, and serviced enterprise content clients while working at Google. Now, he's pioneering his own business models in the creator economy by helping entrepreneurs with tools and systems to more easily market and close sales in today's economy. Fighting out of Dallas, Texas, please welcome Ryan, the maestro of marketing, Muscle Man.
This episode is packed with knockout tips and insights. So let's jump in.
Ryan and Adam, welcome to the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. We're looking forward to have a fun and exciting matchup all about content creation.
Yes, welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You bet. So maybe before we dive into the rounds, give us a little overview about what you're doing and what you're representing here today. Adam, we'll start with you.
Sure, I appreciate it, Mike. So my name is Adam Noor. I am a ghostwriter. I am the head of content for CRE Digital. So we are a digital marketing company specializing in social media ghostwriting, primarily for founders and firms in the commercial real estate space. So it's an offering as a service, a ghostwriting service where we create content from your voice and from your story and use that on social media, primarily LinkedIn, to help you raise capital, drive leads, add investors, increase your brand awareness, your brand authority, whatever that may be.
Awesome. Yeah. And I don't know if you specifically said it, but CRE being commercial real estate, all things ins and outs of that. Cool. Well, we'll get into more of the details here in just a little bit. But Ryan, how about you? Give us an idea of what you're doing these days.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Ryan, and it's nice to be up with a fellow ghostwriter in this. I'm a former ghostwriter. That's my first foray into the entrepreneurship world for my own business. So I can relate to the day in and day out of what you might be going through there. I've since then moved forward in figuring out how to help coaches get clarity on their offer, validated with lead flow, and then ultimately transition that into what I call these lead flow events. So most of social media or coaches on social media are chasing leads, doing all these different marketing activities. And what people end up seeing is the marketing of their business, but not the genius coach beneath that. So it gets buried. So you become a full time marketer instead of a full time coach. So what I help coaches do is establish their lead flow events so they can get that constant and predictable lead flow without the frantic nature of all that we need on social media. And that's not to dog social media. I love it. I believe in personal brands. I just don't think that they're prerequisites for success. And then finally, we work through their conversion protocols so that when they do get those leads and they do close those leads, they're expanding with a coaching program that's actually sustainable. So they're not working 80-hour work weeks, wondering why they left the corporate world to begin with. So good to be here.
Yeah, thanks both. Those are great. It's so true. I mean, a lot of people get into entrepreneurship, especially in coaching or service oriented businesses. And we love helping people and transforming lives and bringing our magic to the one-on-one or the group sessions. But then we're also running a business. And so there's all this stuff that has to happen in the background. And that's where I think a lot of people do get lost and really need help in exactly what you guys are both saying, like clarifying the messaging, really speaking crisply to a particular, focus avatar or ideal client profile or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, all that stuff is not, it's not our strength and our strong suits for a lot of people. And so it's really, these are great services. And so, yeah, today we want to frame this a little bit about Adam coming from the point of view of offering a service, right? I just sign up and say, hey, I need somebody to help me with my marketing. Here's the content that I want to put out. And then Ryan offering more of a productized offering that can be molded and crafted over time, more of a service versus potentially a do-it-yourself type application. And so the way we structured this today is we'll have a series of about 4 rounds, and we'll take a topic for each round, debate how the service and products play within that, and then at the end, Loj and I will confer a bit and crown a champion. And so let's dive in with round 1. Let's talk from a cost perspective. Like me as a consumer coming to you guys, what's the cost framework look like? And I realize there's probably tiers and different things there, and maybe even how it's structured. Like, is this a one-time setup plus an ongoing maintenance, or something infrequent? Ryan, we'll just stay with you on yours and kind of go with that.
Sure. Do you mean explain again? We mean I want to make sure I understand.
So me coming to you to help me market my business or my service, what would the cost structure be in that environment? And how does it work, right? So is it a $2,000 one-time setup fee plus a $50 month to month, or and I'm, like I said, I'm realizing there could be some tiers here that we may need to walk through, but just to get a feel for kind of how what we're talking ballpark to ballpark.
So in the service-based business, there's a couple of different models you're going to experience. Sometimes, and this is probably what you've encountered on LinkedIn if you've ever been looking for an offer construction guide. Usually what people tell you is you got a do-it-yourself offer, which is usually a course. You've got a done-with-you offer, which is usually me training you or helping you with some portion of it. And there's this done-for-you offer, which is probably like my opponent up here, that is writing all of your content for you. And I'm a big component of avoiding the done for you and avoiding the do it yourself. I care more about the done with you, more expressed through group coaching. So when it comes to a cost model, it's going to vary. Doing it yourself is usually a smaller course, $100 to $400, maybe $500 tops. Done for you is the highest cost model, what people say. And then done with you is somewhere in the midpoint, just depending on what you're at. Now, if you go into group coaching, like I'm teaching people how to launch a $5,000 and a $10,000 offer. But if you were just buying a digital product, depending on the efficacy and the outcome of that product, I could probably price it somewhere between 1,000 to 3,000. So it'll be different And if it is a product and you can have ongoing updates, and it'll filter right into what you said, Mike, where you can have maybe an initial activation fee and ongoing payments. So it really will depend on who the person is and the outcome they're delivering based on that
Mhm.
business.
Okay. And I guess just maybe to drill in a little more clarity there. So Lidge and I are familiar with um, your product that is a collection of different programs or algorithms that help clarify messaging, right? There's elements of the content writing. There's finding your audience. Is that still largely how you go about your current service offering, or is that
Not anymore, no. So what you're actually referring to, just for audience knowledge, is a digital product of custom GPTs. And if you're not familiar with a GPT, it just stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's basically the fancy AI way of saying that it's a language model. And that language model can adapt to your style of writing based on how well you train it, pre-train. So it'll give you that transformative language if indeed the instructions that come to give you that transformative language are informative. So what I did was go into ChatGPT and developed a bunch of these little mini apps known as GPTs. So if you have an iPhone, or well, everyone pretty much has an iPhone these days, or an Android, you have different apps that you can get from the App Store. Think of GPTs as little apps you get within ChatGPT, and they can serve different purposes: writing sales content, story content. They can write other forms of content like headlines or emails or blog posts. So what I did was created all of these little mini GPT apps that serve different purposes for your content. So if you needed more story content, I had a GPT for it. If you need help with your sales content, I got a GPT for it. So I was selling this custom service package where you could buy these GPTs and it could run your content for you. Since then, I've evolved it. Now it's a content engine within the program that I mentioned at the beginning of the call that now can write landing pages and 3-page offer documents and email sequences, in addition to just your traditional social media posts that you'd use for sales or story. So hope that helps provide a more well-rounded picture there.
Yeah, it does. I think help kind of give a more holistic view of what that is.
Cool.
Adam, let's pivot over to you, and then we can get into a little bit more the ins and outs of how this stuff works. But offering ghostwriting as a service, I guess that's fairly clear. And like I said, we can get into the machinations about what does that entail as far as like an intake and customization and all of that kind of stuff. But from a service, how are you positioning a service?
Absolutely. So the service model, what we like about it specifically, especially being a smaller, more nimble firm, right? We have 3 full-time, I even hesitate to say employees, really partners, myself and our 2 co-founders. And this might be specific to our service, but the nice thing about being a service provider and a nimble service provider is the ability to be very flexible and very customizable with our service offer and with our pricing. Now, from a broad perspective, of course, Mike, as you alluded to, there are different tiers, of course. Do you want 5 posts a week? Do you want 7 posts a week? Do you want help in refining your back end sales process, or do you already have that dialed in? If so, we'll help you with it. If not, we'll leave it to you. Now, generally speaking, what we'll work with are packages from anywhere from 60 days at a time, 90 days at a time, 180 days at a time, all the way out to a full year at a time. Now, of course, with that customization, we're able to create offer packages based on individualized KPIs, which we really like, right? So if you come to us and you say, well, my primary KPI is that I want to get as many followers as possible. Maybe for whatever reason, you don't care about leads and you don't care about ROI. Hey, that's your call. That's not mine. We can adjust our offer timing, our offer pricing based on your KPIs. And then, of course, having the flexibility to adjust depending on the length of the contract. If you're willing to pay for the service for an entire year in advance, well, of course, we'll give you a concession on that overall fee. So what we mostly see is a 90-day to 90-day package. But again, we're very customizable and able to adjust, which is what we like from the service model, is that we can take it client by client for whatever works best for the individual person.
Nice. Yeah. It is very convenient and flexible. And maybe just staying on that with you, Adam. Let's say somebody signs up with you. What does that initial intake process look like, and then the steady state or the ongoing? I'm assuming there's an initial intake to go through some standard elements of what that person's looking for.
Right. Now, are you talking about the onboarding process or the price point?
Onboarding at this point. So I'm kind of thinking, you could certainly, just to close out round one, if you want to give us a rough feel for what the price points are, order of magnitude or whatever we're talking about, kind of things there, realizing that it sounds like it's a very customizable thing. So I'm sure that's tweaked a little bit person to person, or maybe not.
Sure, it is tweaked person to person. It does oscillate quite a bit. But as far as the onboarding process goes, generally speaking, what we like about it is that it's a relatively light lift from the client perspective. A big part of our service, we work with primarily founders and CEOs, again, in commercial real estate, which is a high leverage, demanding industry, right? So a lot of these folks, they see the benefits of social media, of posting on LinkedIn. But of course, conceptualizing all of that and doing it consistently, let alone becoming an expert at it, is a tremendous lift and requires a lot of time and a lot of commitment that these folks simply don't have. So the onboarding process, what we aim to do is make it as light a lift as possible on the folks we work with. Generally, it will take 2 to 3 weeks from the time the contract is signed to produce our first batch of content. And really, all we ask is for about an hour of our client's time every week or every 2 weeks in the onboarding stage to learn their story, learn their voice, learn their goals. So it's as simple as you're going to hop on a couple of Zoom calls with us. We're going to understand who you are, who you want to be, what persona you want to convey online. We'll talk about your goals and your KPIs, and we'll move on from there. So 2 to 3 weeks in the onboarding, relatively light lift. It's as easy as us hopping on a podcast and chatting together.
Nice. Yeah. And I guess the fact that you're niched into commercial real estate also kind of tightens that boundary set or that framework, mm-hmm. right? So there's...
It does. And we've come to listen to the market. Now, over time, if you would have asked us a year ago, we also worked with finance founders. And mm-hmm. quite frankly, the demand from commercial real estate was overwhelming. And we listened to the market and have adjusted since then.
Yeah, makes sense. Ryan, how about you? Just staying in round two here, where we're talking more about the time commitment from a client. What does that look like going down your path?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably going to be slightly different because it's not a done for you service. So mm-hmm. I tend to manage expectations in the realm of saying 2 to 4 hours per week, depending on how advanced you are. When you start working with me, it may be less, depending on where you're at in your process, could be more. So ultimately, the goal is to not work 80 hours a week, but you may have to do more work in advance to be able to ramp up to a spot where you're at a sustainable enterprise. So really just will vary depending on who it is.
And is there any type of one-time setup, or are you kind of just walking through clients with that, and then they go off and do that? Like Adam was saying, right? There's an intake call where it's, okay, what's the persona you want to be? What's your target? And those kind of things. Are you allowing on your side the client to do a little more of that on their own? And you're guiding them through how to work with that within your system? Or
yeah, it's close. It's definitely categorized. So the first 4 weeks of my program, which is called Coaches Who Close, we're going through a rigid onboarding process on purpose. And that onboarding process will follow 4 different categories. Number 1 is clarity on the offer. Because if you don't understand your offer, it's going to influence how you communicate online, your mm-hmm. content, your bios, any asset offer documents, websites, landing pages, sales conversations. All of it is influenced by your offer and what you're able to deliver. So we must start at the core of what we're selling. On top of that, whatever you make your offer will determine your workday, ultimately your life. So if you structure your offer the wrong way and you find yourself in back-to-back meetings every day, that's what we don't want, right? If we want that, we can just go back to the corporate world and invest there. So we make sure we get the offer right. Week 2 of 4, is us getting the content right. So now that we have an offer, how do we position that in our content so we're not trying to sell someone who's just too unfamiliar with us by giving them overloads of information? Also, how do we make sure we're doing it in a way where we're actually acquiring the right type of target buyers we're trying to reach? Week 3 of onboarding is now starting to plan out those lead flow events. And this is our second unique channel. So if content is our evergreen lead flow channel, and that builds slowly over time, what's our more constant lead flow channel? For someone that has a small audience, this is highly applicable. So we go into our lead flow events. How do we get people into a room with us where it's a virtual event so we can showcase our coaching expertise and they can see, okay, this is exactly where I need to be, versus them just trying to deduce that from their content. So we're adding a new layer there. And finally, I teach them just conversion because it's a really important aspect of being a coach. You have to be able to convert the leads that you get. But many people are running around, jumping too fast to make an offer on a call. They don't have structure. They're suffering from role reversal where the potential client is leading the call and they're kind of working from the back of their heel. So there's a great way to do it where it doesn't feel like you have to do all those different sales tactics. It feels more like you're inviting the person in front of you who's powerfully experienced you into a deeper relationship with you. Much more guard down, less threatening, walk out of there as friends if it doesn't work out as a deal. So we go through a similar process. It's just very deeply integrated into kind of forming the foundation of the business that they're going to be running, ideally for the long haul.
Yeah, a lot more education and end-to-end view there.
There's a lot of moving parts in there, right? So we have to make sure they all align and they're done systematically versus chaotically.
Ryan, do you mind elaborating a little bit what made you shift from what you were doing before and to what you're doing now? Mike and I, it resonates with us because Mike and I are, we launched a coaching program, and at times we struggle with like, how do we convert all the leads that come our way? And I was just curious if what made you pivot into what you're doing.
The last program that was solely focused on content was a great idea. And it's for the person who has the mindset of saying, I just want to sell digital products, but I don't want to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my highest strength is development and strategy. And so what I found was, although that product sold well, it wasn't allowing me to exercise the skills that I wanted to exercise to become the CEO that I needed to be to help other people become the people that they need to be within their coaching practice. So they could expand and scale and start to optimize and bring about the changes that their clients actually want. So for me, it had more to do with a purpose behind it, of not being able to exercise those skills, feeling like, oh, they're hidden over there in the closet and I don't get to pull them out very much. That was a big change in the pivot there. And it turned out to be such a good change. I'm feeling really good about it. So it's been going well as well. So thank you for asking that.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing.
All right. So it sounds like, Adam, as far as ghostwriting, we're looking at maybe a 1 to 2 hour intake type process, and then a few touch points in the early stages. Ryan, you've got a much more kind of a week to week workshop style where you're coaching people through different process steps or flows on that side.
Right.
Let's pivot into round 3 here and talk about the flexibility of these business models from a client perspective. Adam, we can go with you. I think you've already touched a little bit on how this is a pretty flexible service, but let's just take for example, we get into it and are you connecting with clients on a weekly basis or every couple weeks or whatever, just to gauge feedback on how's the content working, how are we doing in achieving goals or metrics, and the need to adapt, or if a client wants to change midstream or something, how much room is there in there for that?
Absolutely, Mike. So we do provide weekly analytics for clients. So that's automated right in our back end. make sure they're aware of what's happening with their
And
KPIs.
I don't think we clarified this. Sorry to interrupt, but are you exclusively LinkedIn at this point? Is that?
We are primarily LinkedIn. We do a little bit of work on Substack as well. If people want to grow, obviously, email subscriptions off platform are kind of the way of the future. If you spend any amount of time in the online arena, you will hear people talk about the danger of only having your audience on a specific platform. We've all heard the horror stories. If LinkedIn decides to kick any of us off tomorrow, then everything we've built is rendered useless, right? So we do help clients own their own email lists, whether that's Substack, Beehive, whatever platform you might want to use. So we're active there as well. And we do some one-off engagements for clients who ask us to expand off of LinkedIn to further ingratiate ourselves in their business. So we'll do some LinkedIn, some Twitter here and there, but LinkedIn and Substack are our bread and butter.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt there, but then
no
you
problem.
were saying you deliver metrics packages, and that's what made me think of that.
All that standard, weekly updates that you would expect. And one of the things, Mike, that I think is very valuable about the service model is that consistent avenue for feedback and iteration, right? We always make sure that we're at least 2 weeks ahead of client content at any given point. The last thing we want is for a client to feel rushed, right? We don't want to be putting content in front of you for your approval 72 hours before it goes live, right? That's a recipe for disaster. We want to give you plenty of time to review. Now, that being said, we know things move quickly. The market moves quickly. Timeliness is a factor more often than not. And having consistent access to us via email where we focus on being responsive is an important part of the service, because let's say you're a capital raiser and you have a new deal and you're trying to attract outside investors. Well, time is of the essence, and it might be a requirement that we scrap or push out the content that we've already scheduled because this is more timely. So that consistent flexibility, that consistent communication is a critical part of the service. And from a flexibility perspective, the other thing that I like about it, Mike, is that the burden of flexibility is on us as the service provider, as opposed to you as the client. And what I mean by that is, for us, we're forced, if we want to stay relevant, to keep up with the times, right? I couldn't even tell you how many AI related products that I pay for, the Mid-Journeys and EasyGen and ChatGPT and everything like that. That is on us to keep up with, right? So for clients out there that are really, really busy and they don't want to take the time to learn these AI products, and heck, even if I learn it, do I know if I'm doing things the right way? Right? That burden is relieved from you as the client and put onto us as the business, because if we don't provide that in our service, well, we're not growing, and if we're not growing, we're dying.
Yeah, makes sense. That's that is overwhelming these days. I mean, it's such an open. The frontier is expanding so rapidly. It really is a challenge. Ryan, how about on your side? It seems like there's a lot of room for flexibility in terms within your program, just because it's kind of a side by side done with you as well.
Yeah, there has to be, because usually people, and I hear this often, I heard it today, in fact, usually people say, being a business coach is so much easier for you, Ryan, because you can offer tangible outcomes in terms of revenue and leads, conversion and growth and so on. And I say, well, actually, that's not true. And let me tell you why. If you're a life coach or a performance coach, or we'll go with a life coach or a career coach, your tangible outcome is helping someone go from an undesirable position to a desirable position. So if you're a life coach and you're helping someone who suffers from low confidence and they're afraid to be in a room with people, even though they're a high ranking executives, they don't feel like they have influence or confidence at that boardroom table. What you're doing for a tangible outcome is bringing them from an undesirable state to a desirable state. And it's ultimately to help them discover what's the goal behind the goal. So yeah, they want to gain more confidence, right? To do what? To advance in their career, to get a new higher compensation package. So tangible outcomes are all around us. It's not just for the business coach. It's not like they have some special advantage and sell more than others, but people just don't understand that at first. So the flexibility comes in when you're helping someone not just sell their offer, but actually become the people they need to be to govern, expand, and execute that offer. And to the degree that you can take someone deeper into who they need to be with their coaching program, be the degree that they take people deeper within their own coaching program. So the domino effect of people enablement and the required flexibility it takes to execute that are always present on the mind, especially because even if you only work with business coaches, for example, one business coach may come in with a decorated career background, another may come in and they don't have that same confidence because they don't have the same experiences. So, how do you work with one who's way advanced versus one who's a little bit earlier on in their journey? And you have to have that flexibility. So, it's a great talking point. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, and how are you managing that? Are you doing a mix of one-on-one and groups, or only groups, or how's
Dominant group. I really believe group coaching is the best long-term approach. On a more practical level, it's scalable. So whether you have 10 clients or 100 clients, the fluctuation doesn't really impact your schedule. You can still go on vacation. You can be with your family on the weekends without checking your phone. And it really comes down to what I was saying at the beginning of the call is depends on how you structure your offer. So you should be able to have 10 or 100 and not have an adversely meaningful change impact to your weekly schedule. The
Mhm.
one-to-one side of it can be an upsell if you choose to do that. I
Right.
currently don't offer that, but if I were, I'd have someone think about, well, what's a one-to-one upsell or what's a VIP day, virtual and in person? That's where the one-to-ones come in. And that's where you can scale with a limited quantity. Most of your revenue will come from the core group coaching program. And you'll find it's more fulfilling because you might have John over here who's way ahead, and you might have Kathy over here who's way behind. She's going to see John crushing it. And so that's going to motivate her and inspire her to learn from John. Now those two are forming a relationship. Well, if they're both crushing it in conjunction with your teaching, now you've probably created a sales team because they're going to tell their friends and or other acquaintances to come into your business, right? Or at least it'll be the solid foundation for a referral to take place. And at that point, you don't have to worry about the social media marketing game as much. Everyone should be setting a goal to say, dominantly, I want my business to be referral based. And that means you have to keep yourself accountable to how you deliver for your clients. If you're getting them what they want, then they will help you get what you want without you even asking them. They're just going to go and tell people how good of an experience it was. That's a real meaningful goal that I think is so important in this day and age when we're so distracted by what is my next post going to be? How do I improve my reach? What should my headline be? And we change all these marketing tactics day in and day out. Great question.
Yes, those raving fans are way more important than the number of likes and the number of comments on a post. So for sure.
Yeah, I like that group setup as well. Just it almost becomes a mastermind and coaching session or whatever, where you get at least you have the potential to have a lot of good interaction and lessons learning from other people and things like that. It's not just all on the coach.
Definitely. And people think that they're going to lose the personalized feedback in there, but not if you structure it right. That personalized feedback will not only be present, but it'll still be powerful. It doesn't lose its efficacy like it does in a one-to-one setting. Or I'm not saying you lose efficacy in a one-to-one setting, but I'm saying you can still bring the same amount of efficacy from a one-to-one into that personalized setting if you set it up right. So people shouldn't be afraid of that. It's still a powerful learning experience. And because the world is so bent on solopreneurship, it's actually a benefit for one solopreneur to meet another solopreneur, even if they don't have a business or a vendor relationship. And even if they're not in a partnership, it's just one person knowing that, hey, they're not in it alone. Someone else is going through similar struggles, trying to build a business, take step 2, 3, and 4, so on. So bringing people together is actually more powerful. We just forget because we're so focused on being a solopreneur that doesn't do ads or doesn't hire a big team. There's nothing wrong with those things. And you don't need.
Yeah, for sure. This is a great point.
I personally love so much what you both are doing. Adam, I have to applaud you because a lot of people don't even want to touch the content creation. They know it's necessary. They know it's a frog they have to swallow, but they don't want to swallow it. It's like, and you come in and you provide that important service. And then obviously, Ryan, you talked about the goal behind the goal, which really resonates with me, because the goal is not to just convert leads, but for those leads to those people that come into your business to have success and to become raving fans and to their lives to be transformed really through what you do.
Yeah. That's great feedback. And you feel so much better when you see it happen as well. Right. The second that they're just a sale for you is the second everybody goes the wrong way.
Yes.
It's not good.
Yeah, if you're selling a product or something, it's a little different, right? You're just looking to rack up as many as you can. But it's a great segue into round 4, where I wanted to talk about success and what that looks like in each of these models, and we can come at it from actual results, kind of what you've seen so far, or expectations, or kind of how you're going about defining some of that. So Adam, why don't we shift over to you and kind of play around with, what does success look like generally, and what are some of the results coming out?
Sure, Mike. So it's, of course, going to vary client to client. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but the primary thing we would like to know off the bat when we form a new relationship is, what does success look like to you, right? What would make this relationship an absolute home run experience?
Right.
What do you want to see in 4 months? What do you want to see in 8 months? What do you want to see in 12 months? So some of the things we have seen with clients, we've taken one client from 3,000 followers on LinkedIn to 35,000 plus followers. We've helped some clients increase their course subscriptions, their students, by 30, 50, 70% even month over month. So those are revenue numbers that are, the word life-changing is thrown around a lot, but that is legitimately life-changing, right? We've helped clients raise capital, hit millions of dollars in capital raised for different deals. So of course it varies client to client. But we've seen a lot of results. We've been very grateful to see, quite frankly, and it's very gratifying to be able to deliver for clients, of course. So yeah, Mike, it's all across the board. It depends on what clients are looking for. But when we go down our roster of clients, I think the best thing, as Ryan mentioned, is creating, a sales force that's out there for you. And we're fortunate to have a strong referral network and clients that send people they know and trust to us. And there's no greater sign of trust than people doing that. So that's what we see in terms of success stories. And the other thing I'll mention too is, what we find a lot of the time is that a component of the success clients experience is not necessarily what they had anticipated or even asked for to begin with. For instance, we've been working with one client for over 18 months now, and we've helped him launch not just a Substack, but a paid Substack. We've helped him launch a coaching course. So what originally was born as a growth-oriented LinkedIn service has now grown into 2 different revenue streams that we helped him build and manage. It's grown into podcast bookings. It's grown into increased network. It's grown into new relationships. So, of course, the nature of posting on social media and personal branding, as we all understand, is to open the door for the opportunities that you want. But more often than not, you'll find that it opens the door to opportunities you weren't even expecting. And those are always nice cherries on top that we see for clients.
Yeah, for sure. Those are epic. I mean, the phrase personal branding gets thrown around a lot, but it really, comes down to the visibility you get and the sharpness of your messaging, opening all those doors. On the flip side of success is an element of risk or downside. What risks are there? Like if somebody were to sign up for your service, is there some, obviously there's a reliance on me, the client, providing you with focused information, or right, I need to be clear, and I'm sure there's some amount of teasing that out of people to make sure it is from you writing content. But what could the possible downsides be, or failure modes, if you want to call it that?
And even that, Mike, if you give me a dud of an interview, well, that's not your problem. That's my problem, right? I'm the content creator. I've got to figure out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure you tease that out to make sure it's clear.
Right. So even in that scenario, that's the burden is on us to make that work. But to answer your question, LinkedIn specifically, and really I'm sure this applies to all social media platforms, is very
Mm.
much a case where you get out what you put in. When I
Mhm.
look at the clients who have not re-upped with our service in the past, or clients that maybe haven't experienced what they had expected, the primary trait of those experiences is a lack of commitment to the process and a lack of commitment to the platform. Right now, we talked a little bit earlier about how a lot of our clients are extremely busy and, quite frankly, don't have the time to work on LinkedIn. Now, of course, figuring that out and lifting that burden off their shoulders is a part of the process and the package that we offer. And we have ways, without getting too in depth, to, of course, help these founders still put in the effort required to experience success on LinkedIn. But that's the constant trait that we see in the risk, so to speak, is that if you're going to step in with one foot and keep the other foot out, you're not going to experience the sort of benefits that you could if you were to jump in with 2 feet.
And what does that mean in practice? Just in the LinkedIn. So you're posting content, and your expectation on the client is to be active in the comments, or commenting on other people, or working their own DMs, or is that kind of what the burden on the client would be?
Essentially, engagement breeds engagement, right? So whether that's working with somebody internally on their team, like a social media intern, or even a full-time staffer, right, to work
Hmm.
that, whether that's you doing it yourself, which we have clients that do, or whether that's
Sure.
working with a virtual assistant, whatever it might be, it's that commitment to producing consistent engagement, engaging on other people's content, showing up on the platform daily, not posting and ghosting, all those things that we as consistent LinkedIn users understand, but people new to the game might not be quite as familiar with.
Okay, makes sense. Ryan, how about you? A little different business model, but successful outcomes also very variable. I'm sure you have much more variety of types of business owners, coaches, right? I mean, it's not just commercial real estate and the things that entails. You, as you mentioned, you have real estate coaches, life coaches, business coaches. I don't know, fitness coaches, maybe. But how
Yeah.
is kind of what's the proof in your process that's delivering results, or kind of what can you lean on there?
Yeah, it's different for everyone because of where they're coming in at. Some people have an existing audience, so they pick up on the content portion of it really fast and can see great results, right? ROI within a week. Amazing. Awesome. Some people are coming in and they're great at first about doing the work. They get started and there's a fast kind of fall off, right? There's not a lot of follow through. So the risk, going back to the original question that I think you're asking, Adam, is just what are the risks there? And I think it's that you have people that can kind of come in at different spots. They want to do the work, but maybe they're distracted by other things that we just don't even know what that could be. And I think you're kind of managing, you're trying to manage all of those people at different stages across their various business contexts. And it works well if you can get everyone on the same program. So at least what you're doing is working towards a benchmark, meaning that someone can come in the program, no offer, no audience, and they can look at this as a benchmark for their conversion protocol. And it should lead to X result. And that's going to probably differ on each person. But
Sure.
if you're able to bring them in on this benchmark process, you're better to able to track their progress, what they're doing, what they need to get done, how it's performing, they need to change. So being very objective in a one track process allows whether the advanced person or the newer person to kind of converge all into one lane that you can then measure that progress and just understand from that point of view. Some people will accelerate, some people will need some baby steps, and some people will need just more of a time investment. So it's a bit all over the board. I wish I could give a more specific answer, but I've seen so much in so many different ways.
Yeah, and just it kind of prompted me here. Like, it may not be realistic, I'm not sure, but Brian, in your business model, like if I were to, and I will here in just a second, pivot over to Adam and say, what is the rough success rate of people? It sounds like, Adam, you have an intake process that says, what is your goal? And somebody says, I don't know if they get as specific as, I want to have 35,000 followers by 6 months. And then at the end of the 6 months, you can measure, did we get 35,000 or did we get 30 or whatever? I don't know, Ryan, if on your side, if you're getting that specific with people in your intake, like, hey, what is your exact goal? Or if that's more on them to go through the process, have their own goal, and then assess so that you could very cleanly at the end of the process say, hey, I've had 100 coaches come through my program and 78% of them hit their goals. Another 10 get close, and some people just, ghost the process or get distracted, like you said. I'm not sure. Do you have something that specific, or is it a little looser as I kind of talk through it?
I wish it could be more specific.
Yeah.
Now, the specifics that we do get into, these are the things that I look for in the success side of it is I've had a client who's a career coach, and his initial goal, going back to the conversation earlier about the goal behind the goal, his initial goal was to just save time so he could really focus on his business. But the real reason that he wanted to be able to save time and optimize is so he could spend more time with his daughter. And so I'm looking to see not just how are the metrics, but are you hitting that goal behind the goal? And that usually involves a more involved intake process where we're talking through that. And that person hit it. So I love seeing things along those lines take
Right.
place. And that person actually didn't go through the full breadth and depth of the program. So the success rates that I see are high based on if you isolate certain areas of the program based on that person and their skill set.
Mhm.
What is a success rate that I believe that I can get someone to when it comes to constant lead flow? I believe that'll be in the 90 percentile because it's just a different process than posting a post and waiting for the leads to come in. And I'm not discounting that. That's an important process. That's an evergreen process. But if you're a coach and someone has experienced your coaching in a high integrity learning environment, and then you're able to get them on a call, your close rates are going to dramatically improve. When I do it, I'm seeing 55% to 60% close rates, depending on the group that comes in. Whereas the industry standard could be somewhere around 20%. So I look for that based on that person and their previous close rate. What does that look like now? Or that person in terms of, hey, I'm getting 1 to 2 social media leads per month. Okay, great. When we install your new process, your lead flow events, your new conversion protocol, now what kind of leads are you getting? Because
Yeah, so
before, their
and after.
definition of a lead might be a lot of people coming in. But under this new process we do, you need 20. And at a 30% conversion rate, 35% conversion rate, what does that mean if you have a 5 to 10K offer? So that's the stuff that I'm looking for. And if I had more data, I'd share it. But that's a newer conversion protocol that I just launched with my other program. So we're going deep into that. And I think I'll come back on a future episode and share those numbers.
Yeah, sure.
Is
No,
working
it's a tough one to measure in there,
Yeah.
and that can work both ways for people selling services. but
Totally.
It's cool. Anything else? Success factors? Any questions for yours?
No, who is your ideal client? Who do you want to work with? Ryan, let's start with you.
Sure. I like to work with a coach because I know that there's a hidden genius within that person. And I know that if I can get that person in front of the people that they want to serve in that high integrity learning environment that I'm talking about, I know that they'll not only close the deal and they'll add that additional income, but they'll start becoming a different person so they can help their people start to become a different people. The money side of it and the lead side of it is actually the least of my concern when someone comes in. I know I can get them there, but the real challenge is helping them become the CEO they need to be so they can build the business they've always wanted to run in order for them to achieve whatever that goal behind the goal is. So for me, I'm looking for those big success factors. I'd rather have people say that than say, I made 50 grand for Brian's program. Don't get me wrong. I want them to say that too. And I believe that they'll do that. But I also want them to see like, dude, I'm walking out of this and my life has changed. And I'm now at a greater depth as a person and a business owner. And therefore my clients are now getting at a greater depth as a person, business owner, career, or whatever that is, whatever their business context is. So I'm looking for those success factors. And previously, when I started off as an entrepreneur, I wasn't even thinking like that. I had to go through my own experiences. I thought it was always going to be a money or tangible outcome along those lines. So,
Love that. How about you, Adam?
Well, I feel as though for a podcast around Fight Club that things have gotten a little chummy so far, and we really, Ryan, we haven't had any sparks fly so far.
yeah.
So it's hard for me to follow up that answer, because that's a tremendous why, and there's a lot of purpose there, and there's a lot of altruism, and there's a lot of wisdom in that. But the nature of our business, again, our ideal clients are commercial real estate founders and firms. And the nature of the work that we do is that it is very financially based. It is very ROI based. There are metrics to hit. There are numbers to hit, and we want to make our clients money. So ideally, there is a why behind the why for why our clients make their money, right? But for us, quite candidly, our goal is to increase their leads, increase their conversions, increase their revenue. Hopefully that leads into them giving back to the community and us being happier people and everybody benefiting from the service. But we are certainly more conversion, more revenue, more ROI based in our service.
And I would imagine you also like to work with people that are committed to, just like you said, are committed to the process. They spend enough time with you, they can see the results.
Exactly. Commitment is important. And the other thing that's nice too is we're able to be relatively selective with the clients that we work with. And that's one benefit of being a smaller agency. Again, I talked about it before, but we have 3 people. And a lot of that means we want to find people who have alignment in values. And there is a values base to that. You understand when you speak to somebody for the first time, whether or not you're on the same page. And we like finding people who have interesting stories to tell, right? It's hard to spin something out of nothing, right? So it is nice to be able to find that alignment and to find the people that we do feel like are similar to us and feel like we can work with and feel like we can provide significant results for. So it's not just every commercial real estate founder and firm in the world. It's the ones that align with what we're trying to do, buy into what we're trying to do, and are willing to put in the effort on their side as well.
Love it.
Speaking of conflicts, any final points from each of you about the others? Poke holes in the business model or challenging? We have a few minutes here before we wrap up.
I wish you would have been more disagreeable, Ryan. It would have made this portion of the program a lot easier.
That's the hole I'm going to poke. You're so agreeable. You suck. You suck at being disagreeable. I hate it. I can,
These would not make good LinkedIn posts. There's too.
Yeah. Well, I believe in Adam's
not a
work.
strong enough opinion.
I believe in his work because I've been in that before. Where I found where I would I don't even know if you want to use the word disagree. I'm trying to create a fight, but where I didn't like it was that it required just too much of a creative commitment on my end, and that ate up so much of my time. I found in the ghostwriting process, while I had a number of successes with it, it just required too much of my creative energy, and that made all the rest of the business that I wanted to run suffer. So it just turned to not work out for me. And that's why people like Adam exist, because they're able to have a greater sense of delivery in that. And I just didn't like it. For me, it just didn't like it. But I believe in it. And I speak with ghostwriters and some of them are actually going to be a part of my program to some degree as more copy editors and so on. So it's cool to see both business models evolve, and I'm glad we have an economy and a market where we can be somewhat competitive. Like there's overlap between our 2 programs, but even if we were deadlock competitors, there's still a good enough market to where we can both coexist and thrive, and that's cool.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. I'm gonna call a time here. Legend, I need to confer for a minute. We're gonna go offline, and you guys can continue fighting in your friendly manner, gentlemanly manner.
I'm flipping chairs and punching holes in walls. Maybe that's what we get the reaction out of it.
There we go.
All right. So This one morphed a little bit, I would say, just because if I would say, Adam, you're kind of purely content focused, right? It's very much me as a client coming to you looking for content. Ryan, I'm coming to you more for a coaching package to do things. And so it's this one's a tricky one to put head to head, and so it kind of makes a decision moot. I am going to say I think the way to craft this one, the way we phrased it at the beginning, like as me as a client coming to someone or looking for a product or service to help me, generate leads, I would lean towards Adam and a ghostwriting concept, just from let's call it a passivity, where I can hire someone to do the work, and I can, it sounds like there's still some involvement that needs to happen. But as far as just, Ryan, to your point, the creativity in the process, I think a lot of business owners don't necessarily have that. However, I do think there's value from an evergreen perspective in going down your Coach as You Close program, because you're getting the training and the knowledge and tools and templates to help things go beyond the service, right? So I can take that on. And so, we don't. I don't think we've done a split decision on one of these, but we could even call this one a split decision. It really comes down to two different client profiles. Really, I mean, it's somebody who's wanting content as a service, and I do think there's expertise in that, because yes, we don't have time to get into this. I was going to ask you how you do your content all day. I don't know how much content you write in a day, Adam, but I mean, that's just got to be
a lot,
and let you, yeah. And so, but in that process, you get very polished, right? You start to understand what works and what doesn't work. And that's where we as business owners don't have the luxury of that time and putting in those reps every day and studying other means and methods and models. And that's where I think that service comes into play. But on Ryan's side, I do think it's a particular niche and business model that is amenable to coaches and getting that end-to-end lead flow. So I don't know if I've talked myself around not giving a decision here, but if I had to pick, I would say more towards Adam, just because it would be a one and done ish kind of a thing, like where you're hiring that. Whereas, but if you have the time to go through the process, I would say definitely you're able to walk away with an evergreen or a repetitive model, right? You teach a man to fish versus giving him a fish, kind of a concept, right? So you're going to continue to pay for services unless you meet your objectives. So that's what I'm ending it on. I think you both have great business models and great content out there. So I encourage anybody to kind of follow you guys. A couple minutes here, maybe 1 minute, but we like to end our episodes with gratitude. We can do this really quickly. Like, I don't know, Adam, if there's anybody particular along your way that has been instrumental in helping you. And I know that's usually a lot of people, but just going to call one out or something.
Yeah, look, just two different subsects of people. First, my business partners, Anthony Carlton and Jesse Fuchsia. You should check them out on LinkedIn. Those guys legitimately changed my life. And then my family, my mom, my dad, my brother. My dad was a freelance writer. He was my mentor. He's the reason that I got into this to begin with. I had a major career shift about 2 years ago, quitting my promising finance job to pursue a career writing online. I think a lot of people have family who would have questioned that decision, and mine did nothing but support me. So I owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude.
Beautiful. Ryan?
That's awesome. Well, I'm a born again Christian. So for me, it's always going to be God through the person and work of Jesus Christ. Because if I look at my life and I compare my actions to the word of God, I just don't line up. I fail miserably. I know how bad of a person I can actually be when I assess my own life truthfully. And what Christ did was go to the cross on my behalf as a perfect, sinless human being, as God himself suffered for my inability to obey God's law. And therefore, his righteousness is what is imputed to me. So I hold fast to that I don't have to go before God with a resume saying I was a good person, I did these things, when in reality, I did a lot of selfish, very dumb, very sinful things. So I look to Christ in God as my salvation. So I'm going to I'll do that, because for me, that's all of life. And that impacts the way that I work. That impacts the relationship my wife and I have together. She's a born again Christian as well. So I'll stand there.
Okay. Can't
Ryan
get
wins.
much bigger than that.
Appreciate
All
it.
right. And finally, for anybody who wants to get a hold of you guys, what's the best way? I think I know the answer here, but Adam, how about you?
Check me out on LinkedIn. Yep, there you go.
Right on.
And there are coaches
MySpace.
out there listening to this. They should hire both of you guys.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going both ways.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong, but go both ways. Exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll see you in the LinkedIn sphere, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, everybody. Thanks again, guys. See you later.
So long.
For those of you tuning in, we thank you so much for investing your time with us on the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. We certainly had a blast, received some knockout insights, all while learning something new. And we hope you did too.
If you had fun, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you watch or listen.
Lygia and I truly believe the beauty of cash flow is having your money fight for you instead of you having to fight for money. So whether it's one of these methods or something else, we encourage you to dream big and take action. See you next time.